I feel like historically, when we picture military decision-making, there's a very specific image that kind of pops into your head.
Oh, yeah. Like a dimly lit war room somewhere.
Exactly. You imagine these generals standing over this sprawling paper map, pushing little markers around.
Or, field commanders looking through a physical scope, just assessing the terrain with their own eyes. It's always been this highly physical, deeply human chain of command.
Right.
Like one person gathers intelligence, another person verifies it, a commander issues a verbal order, and then a soldier on the ground executes it.
Yeah, it's a visible, traceable line, right? From the brain of a human being all the way down to the actual battlefield. You can point to exactly where a decision was made. And I guess more importantly, you can point to the actual person who made it.
Exactly.
But then, you introduce artificial intelligence into that chain of command, and suddenly that whole map room just goes completely dark. I mean, we are looking at a modern battlefield where the chain of command disappears into this black box of algorithms.
It really does. It fundamentally rewrites the entire anatomy of a military strike. The whole architecture of how a target is identified and engaged is it's being handed over to mathematical models.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And the implications of that shift are staggering, especially, when those models fail.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah.
Because today we are exploring a topic that frankly sounds like the plot of some sci-fi dystopia. But the thing is, it's happening right now, in the real world, with real human lives at stake.
Yeah, it's not theoretical anymore.
Not at all. We are looking at the realities uncovered in this recent, just incredibly powerful discussion titled The Ghost in the Machine, AI Accountability in Warfare. Our mission today is to unpack this huge collision of artificial intelligence, military accountability, and some violently conflicting political narratives, just to try and understand how modern warfare is fundamentally changing. So, okay, let's unpack this.
To really grasp what the ghost in the machine is warning us about, we have to kind of ground this in the real-world catalyst, like why this is blowing up right now.
Right.
The foundation of this entire crisis stems from a specific recent military campaign, Operation Epic Fury.
And specifically, a really devastating event within that operation, which was the Shajara Tayyeba school strike, where over 170 civilians were killed in just this single strike.
Yeah.
170 lives. And I want to emphasize that because when we talk about AI and algorithms, the conversation usually gets very theoretical, very fast.
Well, absolutely. That turns into this sterile debate about computer science.
Exactly. But we are looking at a massive human tragedy here, and it's one that has sparked this unprecedented political firestorm.
It really has. And that firestorm has manifested in a way we haven't really seen before in American politics. Because following this strike, over 120 Democrats sent a formal letter to the Pentagon just demanding answers.
Wow. Over 120.
Yeah. But what makes this letter a historical shift isn't just that they are angry about a strike going wrong, it's the very specific nature of their questions.
Wait, so when these 120 lawmakers are demanding answers from the Pentagon, they aren't looking for, like, a rogue commander, right? They aren't asking for the court-martial of a specific pilot who pulled a trigger.
Yeah. No, not at all. They are looking straight past the human element and pointing directly at the technology. The lawmakers are specifically questioning if an artificial intelligence system was responsible for picking the target at that school.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. Think about how this changes the entire nature of military oversight. I mean, for centuries, if a tragic mistake happened in war, military tribunals investigated the commander's judgment.
Right, or the pilot's vision.
Exactly. Or a ground troop's execution under pressure. You questioned human morality and human error.
Yeah.
But now we have this massive faction of the government basically demanding to look at the code. We are shifting from questioning human morality to questioning algorithmic logic.
Which brings us to the actual system that was named in the letter, because the lawmakers specifically pointed to something called the Maven Smart System.
Yes,
Yeah.
Project Maven.
And the response from the military, specifically from CENTCOM, is where the waters get incredibly murky. Because CENTCOM has openly admitted that, yeah, they use AI, they use it to process massive amounts of data in mere seconds. But their big defense, like their ultimate ethical shield, is that they promise a human being always pulls the trigger.
Right, the quote-unquote human-in-the-loop defense. It is the military's primary talking point. Whenever the ethics of AI and warfare are brought up, they basically argue that the AI is just a highly efficient assistant.
Okay, I want to pause on that for a second, because highly efficient assistant sounds like a really polite way of describing something much, much more complex.
Oh, definitely.
How is Maven actually working? What does it mean when Tom says it processes massive amounts of data? Because I don't think we are just talking about a glorified search engine here, right?
No, not at all. We're talking about an advanced concept called sensor fusion. Maven doesn't just, read a text document or look at one picture. It ingests live, high-definition video feeds from dozens of drones simultaneously.
Wow.
Setup. Yes. And then it cross-references that visual data with signal intelligence. So like the geolocation pings of cell phones in a specific grid.
Okay.
It pulls in satellite imagery, historical patrol data, intercepted communications. It uses computer vision to instantly identify a vehicle or a building, and then it aggregates all those different intelligence streams to assign a probability score.
So it's doing the math on all of that at once.
Exactly. It essentially highlights a shape on a screen and tells a human operator, I am 94% sure this is a hostile target. And it does this faster than an entire building full of human analysts ever could.
So the system synthesizes thousands of complex data points in, a fraction of a second, slaps a high probability score on a screen, and then Takom says, hey, don't worry, a human makes the final decision.
Right.
But the source material completely tears that defense apart. It points out this massive vulnerability, which is the danger of outdated or flawed intelligence.
That is the absolute core of the danger here, because the system operates on the data it has access to, right? So if the intelligence being fed into the AI is outdated, say, the satellite imagery is 3 days old, or the cell phone ping it's tracking was actually handed off to a civilian an hour ago, the system doesn't hesitate.
It doesn't know.
Exactly. It doesn't know. It still processes that flawed data in milliseconds and presents a target to the human operator with absolute mathematical confidence.
It's like following a GPS app on your phone that just hasn't updated its map.
That's a great way to put it.
Like you are the one physically holding the steering wheel. You are technically the human in the loop. You are making the decision to turn right or turn left. But if the machine is feeding you bad directions, if it confidently tells you to turn right because it doesn't know the bridge was washed out yesterday, you're still going to drive off a cliff.
Right.
You are just executing a failure that was handed to you by an algorithm.
That analogy captures the exact psychological reality of the human operator in that moment. The discussion around the ghost in the machine refers to this phenomenon as automation bias.
Automation bias.
Yeah. We have to consider the intense environment that operator is sitting in. They are in a command center, likely operating under immense time pressure, knowing lives are on the line. And suddenly, a multi-billion-dollar, highly advanced computer system flashes a red box on their screen. And it claims to have synthesized thousands of data points to arrive at this conclusion.
I mean, who is going to argue with the supercomputer?
Exactly.
If I'm an operator and the machine tells me it has cross-referenced 5 different intelligence feeds in half a second, I simply don't have the capacity to manually verify its math. I can't just pause the war for 3 hours to double-check the satellite imagery myself.
You can't. The human operator defaults to trusting the machine because this system is designed to be trusted. So the human trigger becomes a mere formality. The operator isn't making an informed ethical choice. They are just rubber stamping a machine's calculation.
I'm really hung up on this idea of the human in the loop. I mean, if the machine processes data faster than human comprehension, is that human trigger just an illusion of control? Are we really just keeping a human in a chair so we have a physical body to point a finger at when things go wrong?
You are hitting on the exact accountability crisis that emerges from this technology. When the human is just a rubber stamp, the illusion of control shatters the moment a tragedy like the Shajarate strike happens.
Right.
Over 170 civilians are dead. And suddenly, the traditional chain of command isn't clear anymore. The machine picked the target based on its data aggregation, but the human pulled the trigger based entirely on the machine's recommendation. So who is actually at fault under international law?
Wow, yeah. Is it the programmer?
Maybe the programmer who wrote the computer vision algorithm, or the intelligence analyst who fed it an outdated map, or the operator who trusted the red box on the screen, or the commander who authorized the system's use in the first place.
I mean, the Uniform Code of Military Justice doesn't exactly have a section on how to court-martial a software bug.
No, it certainly doesn't.
And this massive vacuum in accountability is creating absolute chaos in the public messaging. We are looking at a situation where the political and military narratives are just completely fracturing because nobody actually knows how to explain what happened in that black box.
It creates a really dangerous information vacuum. If you don't have a clear, easily explainable human chain of command, it becomes incredibly easy for different political or military figures to project whatever narrative they want onto the event. The fog of war is essentially being amplified by the fog of algorithms.
Let's look at how that is playing out with Operation Epic Fury, because it's a fascinating collision of realities.
It really is.
In the political theater, you have statements from Donald Trump publicly suggesting that, regarding the strike, Iran did it to themselves.
Right.
It is a narrative shifting the blame entirely away from U.S. forces or U.S. algorithmic systems and pointing toward a self-inflicted incident by Iranian actors. Note that we are just reporting what's in the sources here, not taking sides on the politics.
Exactly. We're just looking at the starkly conflicting narratives. Because then, quietly on the operational side, you have the military's own internal reality. Preliminary investigations by the military are actually finding physical debris from a U.S. munition at the site of the strike.
Which is wild. The physical evidence gathered by the military directly contradicts the political messaging happening on the national stage. The disconnect is staggering.
It's a total contradiction.
You have 120 Democrats demanding to know if AI caused a tragedy. You have a former president claiming the adversary did it to themselves, and you have military investigators holding pieces of an American weapon.
And into this chaotic void steps Defense Secretary Hegseth.
Right.
The public and political messaging is already fractured, and the military is grappling with the potential algorithmic failure of massive proportions. And Hegseth's response to the operational environment of modern warfare is to state publicly that there will be, quote, no stupid rules of engagement.
Okay, I need to push back on that, or at least try to understand the logic. Because when Defense Secretary Hegseth talks about removing stupid rules of engagement, doesn't that inherently contradict the urgent need to carefully monitor an AI that could be making mistakes in milliseconds? I mean, we just established that the Maven Smart System can process flawed data and confidently hand a human operator a terrible target. Aren't strict rules of engagement the exact guardrails we desperately need right now?
To understand the friction here, we really need to look at what rules of engagement actually do in a tactical operations center.
Okay.
Traditionally, the push to remove or loosen ROEs is about increasing lethality and speed. It is about untying the hands of the military to act swiftly without being bogged down by bureaucratic red tape. So a rule of engagement might require an operator to get positive visual identification from two separate sources before firing.
Got it.
Or it might require a lengthy collateral damage estimation to ensure no civilians are within a certain radius.
So it's essentially a manual verification checklist.
Exactly, it's a pause. But when you pair an unleashed, deregulated operational environment with an artificial intelligence that operates faster than human thought, the risk of a catastrophic error scales exponentially. Because the rules of engagement are the very steps where a human is forced to pause and ask, wait, does this target make sense, given the civilian presence we saw an hour ago?
It's like realizing your GPS map is outdated, but instead of forcing drivers to physically look out the windshield and verify the road is still there, you just decide to remove the brakes to make the trip faster.
That's spot on. If you strip away those verification rules to prioritize speed, the human operator becomes even more reliant on the AI's instant conclusions. They don't have a mandated checklist forcing them to question the machine. So the human goes from being a pressured rubber stamp to being an automatic rubber stamp.
Wow. We are seeing a fundamental clash between the speed of silicon chips and the speed of human judgment.
We really are.
The technology is designed to collapse the time between identifying a target and destroying it. But military law, accountability, and ethical decision-making all require time. They require a pause. They require a human being to grapple with the context of what they are about to do.
And that context is exactly what an AI lacks. Maven doesn't understand the tragedy of 170 lost lives. It only understands that its data inputs align to cross a statistical threshold.
Right.
When Defense Secretary Hegseth advocates for removing rules of engagement, he is advocating for removing the friction that slows the military down. But in an era of algorithmic warfare, that friction is the only thing keeping the human in control. Without it, the machine operates at its own pace, and the human merely signs the paperwork after the fact.
Let's take a step back and look at the whole picture here. We have covered some heavy, highly consequential material today.
We have.
We started with the devastating human reality. The Shajara Tayyibeh school strike during Operation Epic Fury and the loss of over 170 civilian lives. We explored the unprecedented political response, with 120 Democrats sending a letter to the Pentagon, fundamentally questioning whether a machine, the Maven Smart System, was the true architect of that tragedy.
And from there, we examined the perilous intersection of human psychology and machine speed. We broke down how sensor fusion works and why CCOM's defense of the human in the loop is largely an illusion. We revealed how outdated intelligence, combined with automation bias, can turn an operator into a mere rubber stamp for an algorithm's error.
And finally, we looked at the massive accountability crisis that follows. Yeah. We explored the chaos of conflicting narratives, from Trump's assertion that Iran did it to themselves, to the military's discovery of a U.S. munition, all set against Defense Secretary Hegseth's push to eliminate rules of engagement, effectively removing the brakes from a system that is already moving too fast for humans to control.
Think about how this applies to the systems we are building today and the precedents we are setting for tomorrow. I mean, this isn't a theoretical debate for a computer science ethics class in the year 2050.
No, it's not.
This is a present-day reality. The velocity of warfare is only going to increase. The systems will ingest more data, they will process it faster, and the human window for intervention will continue to shrink. The question of who bears responsibility when the unthinkable happens will only become more obscured as the technology becomes more opaque.
Which leaves us with a final, forward-looking thought for you to mull over. We've spent this entire deep dive debating the frailties of the human in the loop. We've established the dangers of an AI operating at mathematical speeds. But if a human is just acting as a rubber stamp for a machine that processes data in seconds, where does human responsibility actually begin and end? When the dust settles, can you ever truly put an algorithm on trial?